Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel AWS DevOps Niche 11. So in this video, I am going to talk about the AWS Route 53 service. So this video will be into two parts. So in the first part, we will cover about the use cases of Route 53 and we will also do a lab demo on how to create a hosted zone and record sets. And in the part 2 of the video, I am going to talk about the Route 53 health checks. So let us move ahead. So this is going to be the agenda for this part 1 video. So we will see what is Route 53 and its functions. And we will have a lab demo on how to create a hosted zone in Route 53 and how to create record sets. So now what is Route 53? Route 53 is a DNS service provided by AWS. So DNS, as we know, it is a domain name system. If you want to convert the user-friendly host names into IP addresses, that is facilitated by the DNS. So in the AWS world, this DNS service is provided by the service called Route 53. And why 53? Because DNS service runs on this well-known port 53. So that is a reason to indicate that it is a DNS service in AWS. The name Route 53 has been charted out. Okay, so Route 53 is a highly available and a scalable cloud-based domain name system provided by AWS, and it ideally performs three main functions. So what are all the three main functions that Route 53 provides? One is you can register your own domain names using Route 53. So we also have various other domain registrars where you can create your domains. Like we have godaddy.com, we have hostinger.com, and there is a number of domain registrars available. But if you want to have your domain created using Route 53, that also is possible. Then if you want to route the traffic of the resources for your domain, that also can be done by using the Route 53 service. For example, you have your own website and you have some resources hosted in AWS. So whenever any client hits your website, you want to route that traffic to the AWS application endpoint. So how do you configure that routing? So that is possible by using the Route 53 service. And that's where we create the hosted zone and record sets. And the third use case is checking the health of your resources frequently, right? So Route 53 also has the ability to do the health checks to your EC2 instances. It can be, one instance can be in a primary region, other instance can be in another region, secondary region. So when the health check fails for one of the instances in the primary region, Route 53 is automatically going to fail over the traffic to the instance in the secondary region. So that is a third use case, checking the health of the resources frequently. Okay, so we have three main use cases: registering the domain names, routing the internet traffic to the resources for your domain, and then checking the health of your resources frequently. Okay, so now we will directly get into the lab demo and we will see how this Route 53 works. So let us go into the AWS console. The first scenario, what we will see is how do you create your domain name in Route 53. So I'm in the AWS console and I'm going to search for Route 53. So let me click this option, Route 53, Scalable DNS Domain Name Registration. So you have four options here: DNS management, traffic management, availability monitoring, and domain registration. So if at all I want to register my new domain, so of course I'm not going to register it. I have a domain already in GoDaddy, but I just wanted to show you how to do that. So I click register domain here. And you have to enter a domain name. So for example, let's say I want to create a domain named awsdevops.net, right? And I just type it and then I will give a search. So it is saying this particular domain is not available, awsdevops.net. So it can be any domain name, but you can see that it is giving you the available domains. For example, if you want to create a domain name called awsdevopssystem.com, it is quoting a price of $13 US. So this is a price per year, right? Similarly, if I want to go for a domain with the name AWS DevOps.info, it is saying it is $23 US, or similarly AWS DevOps.biz, it is $19 US. So based on the domain that you want to create, the domain name, whether it is a .com or a .info, .net, .biz, etc., the rates, the price per year is going to vary accordingly. Okay. So if at all you want to have a domain created within AWS using Route 53, yes, you can go ahead and select your domain and then click select. Then you'll have to just pay the annual charges. The domain will get registered under your name. Okay, so that is the first use case where you can register your domain names in Route 53. So as I mentioned, there are other third-party domain registrars that is available. So we have GoDaddy.com, which is a very popular domain registrar. Then we also have hostindia.com. So like this, you have n number of domain registrars which is already available in the market. So in my case, I have a domain which is already available in the GoDaddy.com. Okay, so now let us discuss our next use case, that is routing the internet traffic to the resources for your domain. So what does that mean? So let's say I have one custom website. This is my custom website, and my custom website is AWS DevOps info3.in. Okay, so this is something I already created in GoDaddy. So this domain is already created in GoDaddy. I have already created that, right? And let's say when the end customer is hitting this particular domain name, let's say we have a end user. So when the end user is hitting this website in the browser, if he is hitting this website in the browser, what I want to do is I want to automatically route the traffic to my resources in AWS. Okay. So for example, maybe if he hits AWS DevOps info3.in, I want to send the traffic to an EC2 instance. I want to route the traffic to an AWS EC2 instance. Okay. Similarly, let's say if he is hitting www.awsdevopsinfo3.in, first is just AWS DevOps 3.in as a top level domain. And if he hits www.awsdevopsinfo3.in, I want to route the traffic to the load balancer in AWS. How do I configure that routing? So in order to configure this routing, so that whenever your website is hit, the request gets forwarded to either to the EC2 instance or to a load balancer or to any other application endpoints. So this configuration is what is done using Route 53. Okay. So here you will configure a Route 53 in order to enable this configuration. Okay. So let us see how do we do that configuration. So the first step will be, let me clear the screen. The first step, what we need to do is, we need to set up something called as a hosted zone. So create a hosted zone, mapping with custom domain or website. That is the first step, right? We create a hosted zone in Route 53. I will mention hosted zone in Route 53. Mapping your custom domain or website, right? Second thing is update the DNS servers provided by Route 53 in the domain registrar website. So wherever you have hosted your domain, there you have to update the DNS servers what Route 53 has provided. So in my case, I have my domain in GoDaddy. So I will mention GoDaddy here. So create a record set. That will be the third step. Create a record set will point website traffic to the AWS endpoints. So create a record set which will point the traffic hitting the custom domain, right? That's what I meant by the website traffic. So the traffic hitting your custom domain to the AWS endpoints. So these are all the three steps that we need to do as part of routing the traffic hitting your domain to the AWS application endpoints. First, you create a hosted zone in Route 53, update the DNS service provided by Route 53, the domain register or website, then we create a record set. So let's go through the steps one by one. So before that, what I will do, I will set up, I have two instances. I will set up a web server using those instances. And then I will also create a load balancer, which will be used for our demo purpose. So you can see here, I already have two instances here, Web 1 and Web 2. I'm going to set up maybe Apache HTTPD onto this instance. So let me log into the first web server. Okay, maybe I'll have to refresh my security group. Let me log into this instance. So I will quickly install Apache HTTPD onto this instance. I will say yum install HTTPD -y. Then I will start the service. Service HTTPD start. Let me check the status of the service. Service HTTP status. Now I'm going to create a static content. www.html. Let me create a index.html file. I will add a header tag. Welcome to Web 1. Right? This is my first instance static content. So now when I hit this IP address in the browser, my first instance, I'm going to see this content. Welcome to Web 1, right? And I want to do the same thing for my second instance also. I refresh the IP of as well in the security groups. Search from my IP. Here also I'll quickly install HTTPD, yum install HTTPD-y. service HTTP start. I'll go to the web www.html page. I'll create the index.html for a static content here also. Here I will say welcome to web 2. So this is my second instance. Of course, I opened the port 80, the security group for both the instance, right? So now when I hit the second instance IP address in the browser, you can see here we are getting web 2. So the first one is welcome to web 1. The second one is welcome to the web 2. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a classic load balancer, and then I'm going to register both this instance, right? So I click load balancer here, and then I select the previous generation classic load balancer, click create. Then I will give it a name. Maybe I will say my test load balancer. It is an internet facing, and in which availability zones we have placed our instances. We can check that. I think we have placed it in 2B and 2C. Double verify that. We go into the instances. You can see here one instance is in 2B, the other one is in 2C. So let us create a load balancer to be available for these two availability zones where our instances are present. And so with respect to the listeners, I'll go with HTTP port for both instance port as well as the listener port. And health check will be the index.html, which will be the ping path. So now let us go ahead and add the instances, and I will register both the web servers to the load balancer. And rest everything, I'm going to leave it as default. Let us go ahead and create the load balancer. So here it is saying minimum 5 seconds. And I can change it to 2 healthy thresholds. We will create the load balancer. Okay, so team, while this load balancer is getting created, let me go back to my diagram here. Now, what was our first step in Route 53? You have to create a hosted zone in Route 53, mapping your custom domain. So let me go to the Route 53 dashboard again. Okay, so how to create a hosted zone? You have this option, create hosted zone, right? A hosted zone tells Route 53 how to respond to the DNS queries for a domain, right? So I just say create hosted zone. It's very simple. Whatever custom domain that you have created in a third-party registrars, right? In my case, as I told you, I have a domain name called AWS DevOps Info 3.d, which is already available in GoDaddy. So I'm just going to type that host name, the domain name here. So creating a hosted zone is nothing but you are mapping your domain name in Route 53, right? So you mentioned that domain name, and then it can be either a public hosted zone or a private hosted zone if you want to have this hosted in a private network. But in my case, I want to make it as a public hosted zone. So I just say create hosted zone. Okay. So now that is the first step where we create a hosted zone in Route 53, mapping your custom domain, right? This step is done. Now we will go into the second step. Update the DNS servers, not updated, it's update. Update the DNS servers provided by Route 53 in the domain registrar website, right? So where do you see the DNS servers that Route 53 has provided? So if I go to my hosted zone, the moment you create your hosted zone, you will see there are two record sets created here. You can see here, these are the record sets. You can see there are two record sets, default record sets. One is a name server record, one is a SYA record, which is a start of authority. These are the default DNS records that gets created once you created a hosted zone, right? And if you see in this name server record, there are 4 name servers, what Route 53 has provided. So why 4? Because this is to provide high availability for your DNS service. That is the reason Route 53 is a highly available service, because it provides you 4 name servers. Even if one name server is down, your DNS service is not impacted because you have 3 other name servers to cater to the DNS functionality. So that is the reason. Basically, these 4 name servers are provided to achieve the high availability for the DNS service. Okay. So now these are the name servers what Route 53 has provided. Now we need to update this in our domain registrar website. That is our second step, right? Now, where is my domain registrar website? This is my GoDaddy's website where my domain is created. So I'm just going to hit this website. Okay, so you can see here, this is my GoDaddy website. There I can go into the DNS part. And here I go into the name server section. And here I can say change the name servers, because by default it is going to use the name servers provided by GoDaddy. But I will say I will use my own name servers. I'm going to remove the existing ones. By default 2 will be there, so we can modify it anyways. So we remove all of this. So what is the first name server that Route 53 has provided? This one, NS1297. Let me copy that and paste it here. Then let me pick up the second name server. And pick up the name server 3. This is my name server 4. So I'm updating all the name servers that is provided by Route 53 in my domain registrar website, which is a GoDaddy website in my case, right? So I will just click save here. Then I click continue. Okay, so now we have updated it, team. So basically, I'm going to refresh this page just to verify it that if the domain names are properly updated. I click if I go into the name servers tab, yeah, you can see here 1297.269.522.2043. Same thing, 1297.269.522.2043. Okay, great. Now we are done with our second step, right? First, we created our hosted zone, mapped our website. Second thing is whatever DNS servers that Route 53 had provided, we have updated in the GoDaddy website. That is a domain registrar website. Now we need to create a record set which will point the traffic hitting your custom domain to the AWS endpoints, right? So what is that record set I'm going to create? So whenever the client is hitting AWS DevOps.info3.in, that is without any prefix, he just hits AWS DevOps info3.in. The traffic should get routed to my Web1 EC2 instance. That is our condition here. Okay, this is the condition for the first record set. Record set 1. Whenever the client is hitting just AWS DevOps 3.in, the traffic should get routed to the Web1 EC2 instance. So as part of the record set 2, when the client hits www.awsdevopsinfo3.link, the traffic should go to the load balancer. I have created a load balancer, right? So this is my 2 record sets I'm going to create. So when the client hits just AWS DevOps info3.in without any prefix, so this is called as a top level domain. Hitting the website without any prefix like www, etc., it's called as the top level domain. When he hits the top level domain, the traffic should get routed to the one of the EC2 instance, which is a web server 1. But if he hits the website with www.awsdevopsinfo3.in, the traffic should route to the load balancer. For this only, I need to create a couple of record sets. Okay. So before that, we will just verify if our load balancer is working as expected. If I go into the load balancer, so we created a classic load balancer, right? We click reload. Okay, so let me hit the load balancer endpoint. This is my load balancer endpoint. Okay, so now we have registered 2 web servers, right? Now it should first point to the one of the web servers. Now I click a refresh. Now load balancer should point to other web server. Can you see it? Load balancer is doing a round robin to both of my web servers. I click a refresh, it goes to the web server 2. I click a refresh, it goes to the web server 1. Again, I click a refresh, web server 2, refresh, web server 1. Okay, so now the load balancer is functioning as per expectations. Now we will go into the Route 53 and then we will configure the record sets. So how do you configure a record set? Click create record. Now what is our first record set? If the domain name is AWS DevOps info3.in, it should go to the web EC1 instance. I mean the web 1 EC2 instance. Now the record name is just AWS DevOps info3.in. Okay, this is the top level record. What is the record type I need to select? I need to select a record. So if at all you want to route the traffic to just one resource, it can be an IP address, it can be a load balancer, or it can be a S3 endpoint, etc. You just select a record. There are various record sets that is available in Route 53. If you are using an IPv6 address, you can go for a AAA record set. Or if you want to route the traffic to a different domain name, you can use a CNAME record set, which is the canonical name, right? So like that, you have multiple record sets. So in our case, I will select the A record. Then value. In the value, you need to supply the EC2 instance IP address where you want to route the traffic. So in our case, it is a web 1 instance. So what is the IP address of the web 1 instance? This one. I'm going to copy this IP. I will paste it here. So this is my first record set. If the end user hits AWS DevOps info3.in, it should route the traffic to this web 1 EC2 instance. Let me say, click create the records. Fine. So this is our first record set. Now let us create a record set 2 to route the traffic to the load balancer. Now I click once again create record. Here for load balancer it is www dot, correct? That is a prefix. So I will say www dot. So when the end user hits www.awsdevopsinfo3.in, again he has to select the A record, but now in this case the endpoint is not an IP address. Endpoint is another DNS name, correct? So in that situation, you need to enable this alias. So if at all you want to route the traffic to an application endpoint, which itself is like a DNS name, it can be a load balancer endpoint, it can be a S3 endpoint, or it can be a CloudFront distribution. You enable this alias. Okay. So now I will say alias here. I have enabled the alias. Now it is telling what is the endpoint. Here I'm going to select, ours is a classic load balancer, right? So I will say alias to classic and application load balancer. In which region we have our load balancer? It is in the Oregon region. So I'm going to select that. US West Oregon. Now it is going to show me the load balancer, whatever I have created in the Oregon region. This is my classic load balancer. That is it. The only difference is in this record set, you have enabled the alias. It's basically an alias record. Okay. Now let us go ahead and create the records. So that is it. These are the 2 record sets that we created in Route 53 in order to route the traffic hitting our website to the AWS endpoints. Okay. So we created one record set that will route the traffic to the web 1 EC2 instance. The second record set is going to route the traffic to the load balancer. Okay. Now we will try to verify this. It is typically going to take some time for the propagation of the DNS servers, which we updated in GoDaddy. But let us just still verify it if it is already propagated it. So for example, what I will do is, so I will just hit awsdevops.info in the website without the www. So if I just say awsdevops.info3.in, so I'm not using any www here. Ideally, it should go to the EC2 first instance, the web 1 instance, right? Let's see if it is happening. This time the DNS server names would have got propagated. So now we will verify by hitting this domain name if you are able to route the traffic to the AWS endpoints. So for example, based on our first record set, if I am hitting AWS DevOps info3.in, so the request should go to my first EC2 instance, the Web1 server. So can you see here? Now we are hitting the custom website, but however the request is getting forwarded to the EC2 instance, right? So basically it's a Route 53 record set, which is making this routing happen. So similarly, instead of just giving AWS DevOps info3.in, which is a top level domain, as per our second record set, I'm going to give www.awsdevopsinfo3.in. So with this, it should actually hit the load balancer, right? So now if I refresh the screen, it should divert the request to the Web 2. You can see here. Now, basically, we are accessing the load balancer endpoint from this custom domain name, www.awsdevopsinfo3.in. I'm doing a refresh again. It's going to the Web 1 server. I'm doing the refresh again. It is going to the Web 2 server. Right? So this is how you can create record sets and have Route 53 transfer or route the traffic to the resources that you have created within AWS. So I hope this was clear, the demo on how to create a hosted zone on the record set. So before I conclude this video, I also wanted to let you know that I take trainings on AWS as well as DevOps. So if anyone would be interested, you can send an email to the mentioned email ID. So the training mode will be via Zoom, and there will be a class recording that will be uploaded after each and every class that will be permanently available for the participants. So whether it is AWS or DevOps, it is going to be a 5 to 6 weeks of interactive training session, and it is completely focused on the hands-on lab exercises. So additionally, some guidance will be provided on how to prepare your resume, how to tackle the interview questions with respect to AWS and DevOps. So if anyone really interested to take the training from me, you can feel free to send an email to this email ID and I will be getting back with the details. Okay, I hope this video was helpful. And if you have not really subscribed to my channel yet, please feel free to subscribe to my channel. And if you feel that this video will be helpful to any of your known circles, please feel free to share this video. So thank you all, and I will meet you all in my next video.